See, I wouldn't ask for your help if you were the last thing on the face of this planet. Here's your look at the new NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Farmstead, April O'Neil, and Casey Jones. After rescuing Raphael from the foot, the Turtles and their allies, April O'Neil and Casey Jones, retreat to April's family farm to regroup. This 7-inch scale action figure 2-pack includes all new versions of April and Casey in their farm locations clothing, with the improved likenesses of Judith Hogue and Elias Koteas, super articulated and packed with farm-specific accessories. Include wrench, hammer, binoculars, sports drink, and more. Before we get the review started for the brand new TMNT Farmstead, or is it just Farm Set, of April O'Neil and Casey Jones, let me first thank the folks over at NECA that did in fact provide the samples that we're going to be having a look at in this video. Starting things off first, grabbing the ruler to measure Casey Jones. Don't worry, we will be doing comparisons with the previously looked at Casey and April. But for the time being, Casey Jones at about 7 1/8, about 7 inches, we'll go with 7 inches for now. So 7 inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. On to then April, who is quite visibly taller than Casey Jones. She's actually 7 1/4 inches in height, or about 18.5 centimeters tall. Bringing in then the other Casey Jones and April figures we've gotten before. There's a couple of different ones for Casey Jones. Here's what he looks like next to the unmasked Casey. Prior to that, we also did get ourselves a masked version of Casey Jones prior to them actually getting the likeness of the actor. Body-wise, at least the lower jogging pants. Doesn't seem like much does get changed other than cosmetically painting it differently. The head sculpts, which we will compare in a second, also seem to be the same, although they have softened the colors a little bit on Casey's new release here with April O'Neil. Speaking of also April O'Neil's, just reaching off to the side and bringing in the original April O'Neil that we did receive. One thing that they did make changes to, as you'll see in the lower half of April O'Neil, the double jointed knees, which did look a little jarring admittingly on April, have now been fixed and only instead gone with a single hinge joint. And we got ourselves also a brand new head sculpt for April O'Neil. I do like the changes that they've made in this case. And seeing as he certainly does play some significant role between the banter he has with Casey Jones and a bit jarring of an open mouth where you could see someone's actor's eyes inside of Donatello, I figured we would also bring in Donatello for the comparisons as well. In the accessory department, this set does pretty good for itself. Although I feel in some of the cases of the accessories, they weren't really necessary. We're going to talk more about those accessories as we get to them. Starting things off first, as the monologue opens up at the farmstead. I continue to call this set the farmstead. It probably just is the farm set. Certainly, though, as April is monologuing the opener of that scene, you can see that she's doing some drawings, one of which is a sleeping Leonardo standing at door side, waiting for Raphael to recover. The other one being Donatello sitting inside the driver's side of the pickup truck that him and Casey Jones are not only fixing, but also insulting one another in the process. Both of which are nice little replicas that we get in the film, although both of them are printed only on paper. It's not faulting it necessarily, because of course they're paper in the film. The only concern is, of course, the fact that they are made of paper. Longevity of these, you'll either lose them, or if you're not too careful, you'll crimp them or fold them by accident. Nice to see that they at least include these. One thing that is a little jarring, though, I'm going to do my best to pick these up and not lose them in the process. There's 3 of them. You get yourself little tiny pencils. May make for the smallest accessories we've ever gotten with a NECA release. There may also be other ones out there that just don't come to my mind right now, but you get actually three little tiny pencils. They're so difficult, in fact, to try to pick up. I don't know if I would say that all of them are all the same type of lead. Some of them may be the softer lead. If you want the softer lead, then you'll get the darker line. I used to sell stationery back in the day. The pencils themselves are fine, but I almost feel as if, being the fact that they're so easily to lose, it would have just made more sense, I think, to release a hand of April that would have already had the pencils in place. Like, you get this hand right here that clearly is designed to hold one of the pencils, but you have to balance it in between the thumb and the pointer. And it's not easy, believe you me, to try to get that in there. I get one in, and then before I know it, I'm dropping one onto the floor. You have to kind of, again, pry the, can you see it right there? Pry the thumb away from the pointer finger, and then carefully take the pencil. The thing about it, though, there you go. A few little moments it took me to actually get that in there. The thing about it, though, is you're probably not going to be using this hand for anything other than just holding pencils. You already have 3 of them that probably will be most likely to lose. I don't know why they wouldn't have simply just sculpted the hand with the pencil already intact, instead of you having to do what I just did. I'm really actually surprised I managed to get that in this review. I knew it was one thing of all the other things that we were going to be looking at in this review that I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to get the pencil in while everybody's watching me. Whew, got it in. One other thing that also comes included with this set is you get yourself the hammer. Now, this is the hammer that April is carrying in her hand when she walks out from the house. And Casey Jones is sort of leaning off to the side beam of the house, eating an apple. She asks for help. Casey Jones proceeds to, he considers it complimenting her. She seems to think otherwise, but she is carrying the hammer. She then gives it to Casey Jones and then ultimately takes it back from him. This is good. Of course, I'd probably be displaying this with April O'Neil. The thing is, though, while she comes out with the hammer, Casey Jones is holding a golden delicious apple or some sort of yellow apple in his hand. This set doesn't come included with that apple. A stickler only for small little details like that, but if they would have included, like the hammer, for example, it would have also been nice to have included the apple that Casey Jones is eating in the first place. Something also that this set comes included with is a rather dusty pair of binoculars. The dust has actually been effectively painted onto the surface of the plastic. I assure you, it's actually not really even dusted at all. It's a nice little pair of binoculars that you can have displayed along with the figures. Other accessories that come included with it. You get yourself a little tiny wrench. Not as small as the pencils, but still something, if you're not too careful, will be lost. I'll put that over to the side. The set also comes included with a little jar of turtle wax. A nice little nod to what we see in the film. To come included also, you get yourself a bottle of Turtle Aid. Turtle Aid. I love that. They've actually colored the bottom of the more translucent plastic bottle to actually make it look like there's liquid inside. Turtle Aid. I'm thirsty. You get a couple of other hands as well for April O'Neil for, of course, holding the several different objects she comes included with. One of which I have already taken the liberty of removing from her forearm. It was this hand here. This was already taken out when I first took the figures out of their packaging. I have then since replaced it with the gripping hand, which would be the opposite to this hand here. And then, of course, as we've already looked at, still in there, she also comes included with the other hand for holding the pencil. Casey Jones, though, before we get to the alternate head sculpts, also comes included with some swappable hands as well. Comes with a pair of relaxed hands. Well, let's hold on a second. He comes with one relaxed hand, and then he comes with sort of a more gestured hand. It's rather interesting and jarring, in fact, to see the hands with painted nails. Usually, if anything, you see the hands with just molded the plastic and the nails are kept the same coloring of as the rest of the hands themselves. But it's strange, actually, that they've gone in there and painted the nails. It's a little on the bright white side. At least I appreciate the fact they've gone in there and added the touch of detail like painting on the nails. Just really strange to see it with Casey Jones. Comes also with another gripping hand. And he also comes included with a closed fist, which actually matches the one that's currently on his hand. So literally I just popped off one hand and replaced it with the other gripping hand, which would be the mirror copy to the other side. Other things that come included with Casey Jones, you get yourself just the standalone Casey Jones mask, which was also a release and included with the previously looked at Casey Jones. So you get sort of a follow-up, a carryover of the same accessory. That's fine. I don't mind the fact that they would have included it. The thing I'm kind of a little more confused about is the fact that they included also a Casey Jones head sculpt that has already the mask in place. Being already the fact that if you have been collecting the TMNT line from NECA Toys, well, here is the original Casey Jones that had the mask. This was the one I think got packed along with the hidden or in disguise Raphael. The head sculpts don't seem too different, although the mask on this one, the standalone head, is notably a lot brighter than the one that we got on the head or the neck of the original Casey Jones. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could pop this off. You don't have to necessarily use the sound effects to do that, and replace it with this head sculpt if you want the brighter mask. Now, I think, though, honestly, I don't know if this is an accessory I would have initially asked for with this particular release. If anything, and I'm going to bring back in Donatello for this, I would have almost used and saved the plastic to get this, because after all, we already have this head sculpt already. I would have saved the plastic to produce this, and culminating those, adding that plastic together, the amount of same plastic used to produce both of those accessories, I would have actually brought back an alternate head sculpt for Donatello. Providing, of course, you already have this Donatello, but it certainly would be a fun nod to the movie. And the fact there's a rather scary looking scene where both Raphael recovers, Donatello and April O'Neil are in a door frame. And Donatello actually laughs and opens his mouth to the point where you could actually see the actor that plays the role of Donatello. You could see his eyes inside the open mouth. A little jarring, of course, as a younger child to see that. But I think, if anything, they could have used the plastic to produce this and instead given us an alternate head sculpt for Donatello with that noted open mouth and the eyes hidden inside. As for April O'Neil, though, the one other thing that comes included with the figure is an alternate head sculpt. And, of course, we're going to do the comparisons. In fact, you know what? While we're on the topic of looking at the heads anyways, here's what the stock head sculpt looks like. I have yet to change it, and this is what the alternate head sculpt looks like that comes included with April O'Neil. Sort of more of a somber look for April on the stock head, and more of a smiling face on the alternate head sculpt. While still holding these figures and not dropping the head sculpts, I'm going to bring in the original April O'Neil. You know, while I think the colors of her eyes are a lot brighter on the original release, I think both the face, the paint that they used, as well as the curlier hair, I think actually looks a little bit better on the farm April O'Neil than the one we got initially. In both the cases, they look spot-on likeness to Judith Hoag, but I feel in a case like this, almost the hair is the thing that sells this head sculpt, making this look a little bit more like April O'Neil. The only thing that's a little off and missing in this set is that they did not include a more ticked-off April O'Neil, as it happens a lot, especially when she's talking to Casey Jones. One other accessory she comes also included with as the original April O'Neil, she comes with a display stand. As standing the figure on her own, being the fact that she does have high heels, she just doesn't have enough proper footing for her to stand on her own. So a display stand definitely is handy. It just essentially plugs into undersides of either one of her feet. And I would certainly recommend, while displaying this figure, to put both of her feet on the stand. Because if you only put one foot, it sort of off-kelters the standing of April O'Neil, and she's more likely to lean. If you would really want to put her on both feet on the display stand, is really where you capitalize on the stability of the figure and not, like I said, falling over. Picking back April O'Neil for a second will actually kind of cover off the territory of the rest of her outfit. She does have the tied-off front blouse rolled up here on the sleeves, striping the nice coloring of the orange and the yellow here. I think in the movie, actually, it's closer to being an orangey pink, but in this case, they've actually colored it more of like a tangerine orange. It is a softer material that they would have put over top of her existing body, and of course re-sculpted brand new arms to incorporate the rolled up sleeves. Still has the lower skirting, although it's not the same lower skirting, of course, as reporter April O'Neil. It looks about to be the same length, although it's sculpted a little bit different. Of course, speaking of sculpted differently, April O'Neil does have now the new noted legs, with the change of knees. Some of the reporter April O'Neils actually got re-released with only the single hinge joint. I appreciate certainly that NECA would have put in a double hinge on April O'Neil, but by the nature of the character anyways, she really isn't going to be running around a lot. A single hinge is more than enough, and it kind of cleans things up a little nicer as well. The coloring also on April O'Neil isn't that much different, although I think, again, like the face, like Casey Jones that we're about to have a look at, seems notably softer on April's face than more the stark features that the original reporter April O'Neil had. Hair sculpt is really good on this one as well, and colors really have continued to be good on all the line across the board. By the way, actually, while we are holding April O'Neil, let's look at her articulation. Head is on a ball joint, so like the other one before, the hair is softer plastic, but the head does look down, it looks up, rocks back and forth as well. The arms can come out at 90 degrees. And of course, you can also take the arms and rotate them all the way around. It's a little tight on the shoulders, so you'll excuse me if I don't actually do that, but they would normally been able to rotate all the way around. Figure does not have a swivel in the bicep. Figure, however, does have a hinge in the elbow, which also allows the forearm to rotate. Hands rotate also all the way around, hinging back and forth. Notably, you can also see as well, she does have a thumb ring. I always have a fear and phobia of wearing rings because I always feel like I'm never going to be able to get a ring off. Somehow I'm going to have to cut my fingers off. I wonder how many other people out there have a fear and phobia of rings. If you do, let me know down below in the comments section. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant for this review. Upper torso is on a ball joint. Let's go ahead and remove the figure from the display stand. Because, of course, she has very tight plastic used for the skirt, as you probably would imagine, it doesn't really allow the figure to move back and forth very much. Moving it forward and back this way is only to about a little less than 45 degrees. It does have a lower hinge joint on the knee that allows the lower leg to rotate slightly, and she does also have an ankle pivot with the ankle rocker also going that way as well. And like the other April O'Neil, I'm going to go put her back on the display stand, which again just plugs into the underside of her foot. You only have one choice to work with. The figure only has one single peg on her display stand, but there's an April O'Neil. And I guess for just the purpose of comparisons, I decided to keep April O'Neil. By the way, she was still doing her news reporting when I had to abruptly pull her away from her job to do the comparisons of the two figures. As you can certainly see, the hair is sculpted differently here in April O'Neil. The face is very similar, although the softer features and paint that they've applied to Farm April O'Neil, I think give you almost a better looking likeness to the actress. Then on to Casey Jones, going ahead and picking the figure up right now. One thing you probably may already notice is the excessive amount of chest hair. I had no real reason to think that Casey Jones had this much chest hair, but apparently the figure, as the figure, he certainly does. Bringing in the other figure of Casey Jones we got before, I'm not going to bring back in the one that has the mask because, of course, you're not going to be able to see the actor's face. It seems as if the case be that they are using the same head sculpt, but like the case of April O'Neil, they definitely have gone in there and softened the paint. I don't know, though, intentionally, or whether the factory that is printing these figures and painting them have decided to actually go a different route of painting the figures, because when you're looking at them, what the original Casey Jones had that the new Casey Jones doesn't have, it had a sheen, a little more of a reflection on the plastic that they would have used. It could also be the case as well that they've used a different type of plastic, but it's definitely softer features happening on the new Casey Jones. Body-wise, does look like the arms are probably reused from one figure to the other. Fingerless gloves now are completely gone in the new release. Of course, the rolled up sleeves are gone as well, as he's wearing himself a tank top. Quite dirty of a tank top too, so you're getting a brand new remolding of a torso piece. Lower legs, though, seem to be the same between Casey Jones. Not same in the sense that the paint is identical, because obviously you can see the new Casey Jones has definitely more, not only lighter colored jogging pants, but a lot more dirt on them as well. The shoes, sneakers, anything you would consider his footwear, seems a little bit different also as well. The original Casey Jones had a little bit of white paint that I've got on the bottom of it. The Casey Jones that I have here doesn't seem to have that. I think like his plastic though, and the head sculpt, it seems like his footwear is also more of a matted finish. It's not as shiny of black, which I guess makes some sense because of course they've been battling the foot, they've been on foot themselves. I would imagine like his outfit as well as his footwear would probably be a little bit more scuffed up. Spinning the figures around to the back so you can see, yeah, it looks like, at least head-wise, they are using the identical head sculpt, but there's definitely considerable changes that they have made to the paint. For the articulation on Casey Jones, it's going to remain the same as the one we looked at before. The head is on a ball joint, once again, so it does rotate technically all the way around. It looks up and looks down, and of course you can also move it back and forth as well. Shoulders do come out like April O'Neil at 90 degrees. You can take the arms and, of course, rotate them all the way around. It has a single bend in the elbow, which allows also the forearm to rotate, hands to also rotate all the way around. One thing that's actually interesting about Casey Jones is that he does have torso articulation, but the torso articulation, for obvious reasons, is underneath the softer plastic that they would have sculpted for the tank top. So while you are moving him, you're essentially moving him underneath the tank top. Kind of find that a little funny. He does have like that still ball joint. You can actually see there's the ball joint right there. When you are moving the torso, it does leave a little gap then where you can see the spacing between the top of his torso and the lower torso that make up his jogging pants. Legs do split out. They are in a ratchet joint. They are a little on the tight side and can't get quite the full Van Damme splits, but you can get about that on Casey Jones. Just popping the torso back down. There we go. You take the legs, you can move them forward, you can move them back. There's a single hinge on the knee that also allows the lower leg to rotate. And like April O'Neil, he not only does have the foot to angle back and forth this way, but he also has the means to angle his ankles this way as well. And like we had certainly done as well for April O'Neil, we'll put back Casey Jones. And then we'll bring in back his former counterparts, the unmasked Casey Jones, and then the masked Casey Jones. The set does well to include all the accessories that we see in the film. There are a few little things that got left off. Again, small little thing, Casey Jones doesn't have his apple. Is that enough to write off the idea of picking up this set? No, that'd be ridiculous. But at least if they had included the hammer that April O'Neil is walking out of the farm with, or the farm opening of the front door with, it would have been nice at least that they could have also included that. I'm assuming it's a yellow, delicious apple. Now we're going to spend a lot of time talking and discussing what apple Casey Jones is eating, but at least they should have included the apple, maybe permanently molded to his hand. And certainly while we're also on the topic of molding things to the hands, I think really they should have included also the pencil as molded to April's hand, instead of actually including the pencils separately. First of all, there's a bigger risk of losing the pencils being that they are so small. And seeing as you are, after all, having to put them in between her pointer and her thumb to hold those pencils, I don't see why they just didn't include hands with those molded pencils in the first place. Seeing as this set didn't in fact include the apple, are we still talking? We're still talking about the apple? I instead decided to put the bottle of Turtle Aid into Casey Jones's hand. At least it's something for him to hold on to. The set does well, like I said, to include all the accessories that are specific to the movie. There are a few little things that they did omit, like the apple, but I think there's other things that didn't need to be included with the set in the first place. While I do appreciate the fact that they included the sketches, that's something that is nice about this set. I don't feel like necessarily it had to include the Casey Jones alternate head portrait, because by now they're already on the run. They've retreated and hidden out at this farm location of April's. Why would they have included an alternate head sculpt with Casey Jones with a mask in place? The only thought that I have is that they've changed the paint and improved the paint on that head sculpt, that you could in fact use it with that other Casey Jones we got before. I still think for the amount of plastic that was used for that alternate head portrait for Casey Jones and the alternate mask, the standalone mask that you can hold in his hand, I would have been thrilled for the idea that they could have used that amount of plastic and included an alternate head sculpt for Donatello with the open mouth and the creepy little eyes peering at you inside. Other than that, I really like the look of this set. The colors work a lot better, I find, on this one. And again, like the softer use of paints on April O'Neil's face as well as Casey Jones, I think almost give you a more realistic portrait of both the actors that played the roles in the film. I still like the reporter April O'Neil, and I still like the other two Casey Jones we got before, but I do like the approach that they went with on the paint on this one. And of course, if you're a big fan of that scene from the original 90s film, this is a great set to pick up to replicate or reenact at least most of the scenes short of the pickup truck. I don't think NECA's ever going to release the pickup truck. Anyways, though, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA that did in fact provide this sample. It's actually Farmhouse. I don't know why I kept calling it Farmstead. Homestead makes sense. Farmstead doesn't make as much sense. It's Farmhouse. Casey Jones and April O'Neil. It says that right there on the back of the packaging. But a big thank you, though, to the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample that we could have a look at in this review. If you guys are new to this channel, by the way, FYI, and you haven't yet had the chance to do so, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Turn on as well the bell notification so you're going to get those reminders every single time. Not only NECA reviews will be coming up to the channel, but also other reviews also as well. At the amount of circulating videos that are always coming to this channel, it's good to be in the know by turning on the bell notification so you're going to get those reminders. As Monday to Friday, Monday, that's right, Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah, Thursday, sure, Friday, also, every single day, or at least the 5 days, there's 2 videos popping up on this channel. So there's always content that may possibly be missed if you're not hitting that bell notification. There's definitely going to be a lot more NECA reviews coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.